On the music.
You can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious!
Okay, we're here again. Sam, Mike and Don, and this, we've got a very special guest in again. Guests just getting better and better as time goes on, Mick
Better
and Don.
and better.
And this is like, this could be Rex Hunt-esque. The confrontation between some of the panel members and our guest could be just exhilarating. Now, let me just tell you who we've got in. See if you can guess who it is. You should know, Mick, because you invited him in. He is.
And he's sitting right opposite you.
He is of Dutch extraction. He is a South Australian and has fled across the border to start a very, very great media career. He's a conservative commentator. He's a blogger. He's a TV star. He has his own show, which I won't mention now because it'll give it away. He is a Herald Sun columnist. He was with The Age. He did run a Melbourne Talk radio station with the late Stephen Price.
The late
of MTR. He worked in Hong Kong as a correspondent. He was have a listen to this, Mick, this will floor you. He was a confidant of the late Bob Hawke. You can ask him about that. I'm not sure if Usain Bolt is his son, the world triple champion as a sprinter, but we'll find out. And he is the head man of the Bolt Report. Of course, it's Andrew Bolt Donald. And let me just say this. Someone said this is one of these subjective statements when people don't agree with your opinion. They said he is frequently criticised for his inappropriate comments. That would come from someone like you, Mick. I'll hand it over to the great Andrew Bolt and you.
Thank you, Sammy. Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning, fellow colleague.
What you left out of that description, Sammy, is the most provocative political and social affairs commentator in the country.
Well, that's probably frequently criticised for his...
Provoking who?
And
exactly.
The world.
I don't provoke Sam.
No, the world you provoke.
No,
everyone
who?
else. Yeah, any normal person.
Well, no.
Really? Is that correct? So if you and I sat in the middle of the MCG...
Yep.
And I gave my opinions and you gave yours, who do you think would get the biggest support?
You.
So who am I provoking?
Just me.
That's it.
Okay. I think we're narrowing it down now.
Statements, Mick.
You threw it over to Andrew and me.
I'm not calling you stupid, but that is exactly right. That's just subjective nonsense. Go ahead.
Okay. He's the biggest name in the Murdoch stable.
He is.
And I wouldn't think this is unfair. You probably will. You seem to be the champion of the oppressed. I mean, all the people whose cases you run, like Tony Abbott and George Pell and Israel Folau and all those, they're all...
You've agreed with all those opinions of mine and his about that?
No, I haven't.
Yes, you have.
I've agreed with none of those opinions. I didn't like Abbott. I think I'm prepared to abide by the laws of the land that Pell has been found guilty.
That's right. You said you didn't think on that evidence... Go ahead. Sorry. I'm sorry, I shouldn't keep interrupting. You said, Mick, on the evidence that was presented for that case, he shouldn't be found guilty.
I was surprised that you were found guilty.
Well, there you are.
No,
why
that's
is that
my case. So why am I provocative?
Well, because you know you're provocative. And
I disagree on that completely. There are a number of people I do provoke, but they seem to be concentrated in the media and political class. Yeah, and is that a crime? Is it?
No, it's not. Of course, it's not a crime.
Well, it seems to set you right off.
We wouldn't have you here if we thought you were breaking the law. And the ABC, it seems like it's
breaking the law.
One man's campaign to dismantle the ABC.
Well, I'm getting to the point where I don't think the ABC can be reformed, so perhaps it should be sold off.
What is wrong with the ABC?
Well, it's just
good question, Don.
Don, this morning I got up, I listened to Radio National Breakfast, get treated to that's on the ABC.
Yeah, I listened to.
Yeah, and that's a diatribe on global warming. I switch to 7 for the AM program, get another diatribe on global warming. Then I listen to Virginia Trioli on the ABC, another diatribe on global warming. That's all in one morning, and I'm thinking, heavens to Betsy, you don't think it's biased? I mean, this is biased to wazoo, and I just think since all taxpayers pay for it, it should be balanced, as is in fact is required by law, and if it can't be balanced, then sell it off. And do what you guys do. Are taxpayers funding you?
No, but,
right.
but you can't look. Can't be serious in saying
That's the
not
name of
not
our
about
show.
title for a show. In saying that the ABC in total is a magnificent institution. Where else are we going?
Really?
Well, if you relied on free-to-air TV for your intellectual stimulation, you'd have none. Right? None. It's an intellectual,
Including the TV stations you've worked for.
It's an intellectual.
So if I
desert.
tune into your show, it's absolute rubbish, is it? No intellectual
that's
stimulation at
Foxtel.
all.
No, I'm on Foxtel. I'm on Fox.
Yeah, I know.
Footy.
That's what I'm saying. You said we're commercial. Foxtel is what's
Yeah.
called commercial.
I'm talking about
Free to air.
7, 9, and 10.
Have you told Eddie that none of his shows have got any intellectual content
Well,
whatsoever?
I'm happy to say that. I'm saying it now publicly. I mean, where else are we going to get shows like Australian Story and Four Corners and Catalyst and all those sort of programs? You think that the commercial stations would run them?
I think if there's a market for it, then the people who think it's valuable, like you, will put their hands in their pocket and support it, won't they?
So Mick, if I may,
You want me to support your choices,
No.
taxpayer money, but you won't support mine.
I want an independent institution like the ABC is.
It's not independent, mate.
Well, in my view, it is.
It's your view, mate. I tell you, you want me to fund your political choices when it comes to programs, but you don't want taxpayers to fund mine.
But how is Catalyst and Australian Story? They're not political.
No, Catalyst made a bit Australian stories sometimes, but mainly I'm talking about the current affairs shows.
Q&A.
They are Q&A, well, basically all of them, 7:30, Virginia Trioli, all those people. I mean, for heaven's
I've
sake.
been on Australian Story. Mick, just last week, in deference to what Andrew just said, I told you what the new paradigm, the new plan for the ABC in next year is. And you said, I'm not sure that will go well. And it was Indigenous issues. This is their 3 planks that they're banking on next year for viewership. Indigenous affairs, climate change, and clerical abuse. And I said, I hope Ida Buttrose has, and you said, yes, I hope she hasn't put those forward. They're the 3 things.
Did I say that, did I?
You did.
You sure about that?
Would you like me to replay it?
No,
Mick?
but
No, you can't have selective memory. And you said, now, would you say they're mainstream topics for the people in this community?
Climate change definitely is.
But it's climate change, but it's
Among
so
who?
fractured and so fragmented about what is climate change and what's not, that you ask Andrew Bolt about your opinion about climate change and he'll give his,
I'll
I
tell you
reckon.
what,
Let me just ask, as the independent arbiter here, Don Scott.
No,
right?
I am. No, I'm the
Don Scott,
yes.
absolutely independent.
Okay.
Don, listen, in your average day, talking to people, I mean, Mike Sheehan says this is absolutely important for people, Australians. How many conversations would you just off the bat have on global warming in an average day?
None, not one.
I had 3 on the ABC within the period of an hour and a half.
Now, I am independent.
Sorry, Don.
Excuse me.
No, in his
Just
point.
let me have something to say here. Yes. I think both of you play an important role in the media. You representing the ABC and you...
Stop grabbing me.
Go on.
Well, Andrew's 2 articles, one on Pell last week and yesterday's article on that chap who claims to be an Aboriginal. Now, if you didn't disclose them, as the ABC have disclosed various things, we would not be any the wiser. So I think both of you play an important job
balance.
in it.
Well, but that's the whole thing, Don. The whole thing is that you should be able to have a discussion. Mike and I sitting at the same table here is something that you would not get on the ABC in a month of Sundays. You do not get the debate, and that's what drives me nuts. I mean, Australians are such morons that they can't have a debate on the national broadcaster, which we all pay for, but in fact, one half of the debate is always excluded. As a result, you tend not to get half the argument, including a couple of things
Andrew.
you mentioned. Like the evidence growing that George Pell was unfairly convicted is not an argument you would hear on the ABC, which has prosecuted against him from the get-go and poisoned the well.
What, Louise Milligan?
Yes, absolutely.
So
and
you
they've
think
dug in behind
You
it.
think she's biased?
Of course she's biased. Everyone's biased, though,
Why,
mate.
Why, of course, she's biased?
Everyone's biased.
I mean, we're supposed to be...
Well, have a listen. Have you not read her articles?
And I've read her book too, but
There you go.
We are supposed to be objective observers of what's happening.
No one's objective.
No one's objective.
Of course they aren't. Are you objective?
Well, I hope so.
So
How are you objective? You've got your biases like I've got mine. If you're not informed by what you think is important in the world, then what are you?
Yeah, but you did the research into Pell last week. You had a diagram in your column, and I thought that was really fascinating. You went down your time. You did. I thought that was terrific. And then that story yesterday. So you've done your research. So how is that biased?
No, look, I can be biased by an idea, for instance, that I tell you what, in George Pell's case, one of the things that has hurt him is the new identity politics. So people see him as not just George Pell, an individual. They see him as George Pell, Catholic priest, symbol of the male patriarchy.
symbol of the systemic abuse of
children by
people.
and therefore he's got to go.
But that's how it
he's
gets
got to be
swayed.
convicted for the sins of the church, right, and the patriarchy more generally.
Not his own sins.
Not for his own sins.
Not for. What about his personality?
No, but it's true. It's absolutely true. You look at some of the commentary, they think, well, he's got it because the church was this or that. And in fact, the judge that sentenced him warned against exactly that attitude and said that it was the kind of attitude that we saw in the street. And you do.
So he's been in the courts twice.
And more than that.
Well, the third time they upheld his appeal for is it a retrial?
No, they didn't uphill.
Didn't
the
they?
last one they said he could put his
Seek leave to go to the High
seek
Court.
leave to go to the High Court
Right.
and put his case there.
Okay, so what about the two previous matters before the court where he was found guilty both times?
But
He
that's
wasn't
not what
found
he's
guilty
being
both times. He
tried
found
on.
guilty once.
And then he appealed,
Yeah.
and the appeal was
They
dismissed.
didn't find him guilty. They said that the jury could have held a reasonable view, but obviously they did not. There's certainly one dissenting judge was very clear on that.
He was, but
And since
there's
I've
one dissenting
demonstrated,
judge and there's two who are of the other view.
yeah. What? So suddenly, so you're all convinced that he's guilty now, Mike, and then if the High Court says that he's been unfairly convicted, you'll have the opposite opinion. So your opinion is dictated by what others say.
No. I mean, I don't know. I didn't sit through the whole thing.
Mick.
No, well,
But please,
it
now
doesn't
look,
make any sense what happened to him.
I'm sorry about this, Mick.
You're not sorry.
Well, you cannot have one opinion in various episodes we do and then have a contrary. You told me, and we had this discussion, that on the basis of the evidence
Of what we
of
knew.
this particular case, you could not find Pell guilty.
Yes.
He is now the victim of systemic abuse by children of the
That's not
clergy.
the logical conclusion. I said that. I did say that I was surprised.
But you say different when
No,
I'm
I
sitting
said-
here. See,
no,
this goes to the point.
Andrew, let
No,
me
I
you
tend
do
to
me.
polarize
I was
some
su-
people like you that if I say it, it must be wrong.
I was
That if
surprised he was found
come
guilty.
to your own,
There you
if
are,
left
Mick.
on your own,
You're
you come
surprised
to a
he was
different
found
view.
guilty, as
Yeah,
we
I
all,
was surprised
on
he was,
that case.
But we live in a society where if that's what the courts deem, well, that's what.
Yeah, well, I accept that too, mate. How's that? How do I differ from you on that?
We
You've
accept-
got to go with what the courts do in the sense of he's been found guilty, well, off you go to jail.
Yes.
Right, I agree with you.
Yeah.
But that's not to say the courts get it right. In this case, I've got it extremely wrong, and I'm still entitled to say
But
that.
why are you convinced that they've got it extremely wrong?
Because I've gone through the evidence. I've done what Don said. I've walked. Put it like this: if you believe what the two judges of the Victorian Court of Appeal said must have happened, if it had to have happened at all, that George Pell raped and sexually abused the two boys within the 5 to 6 minutes immediately after the mass, then, well, it couldn't have happened, because at the very same time that they say the boys must have been inside the cathedral getting raped, by the boys or the accuser's own evidence, he was actually outside.
One of the
in
accusers.
One of the accusers. The other one said it didn't happen and is now dead. The one accuser was actually outside the cathedral in a procession of choir boys by his own words. And I don't understand how this could possibly have escaped the attention of the judges.
But that's what they're appointed to do. The judges.
They made a mistake,
Yeah,
Mike.
they made a mistake,
They made a
Michael.
mistake. So
They made a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes. They made a massive mistake.
Two of them. Two
Two of them,
Two
absolutely.
eminent legal minds.
And
They
one
made
didn't.
a
have
massive
sat
mistake.
through- stop grabbing me, will you?
Would the legal fraternity have done what you did and actually get out there and walk?
Well, I'm surprised they didn't do that.
Did they do it?
No. I mean, it was free for them to do that, But I don't see any evidence. I just think they got confused. They got hopelessly confused by all the arguments. There's a prejudice working, maybe. I don't know. But it cannot have happened as it was said.
I knew this would turn out like
no,
this.
it won't. I'm
No,
not
it's
ganging
great.
up. I'm not ganging up.
Don't get overawed by Australia's most
Hey, mate,
powerful commentator.
Mick, you're a disgrace. You cannot have.
No,
you-
don't
It's
say
not
that.
a
It's not a
disgrace.
disgrace. No,
It's
no,
not
it's
at
not
all.
a disgrace.
You're a
We're
disgrace
just all
to
people
say
disagreeing.
that you
That's all.
have that opinion here now. We have had this discussion several times about Pell, and the very fact that it sounds like because we're defending him, we're condoning anything that's gone on in the church. But
We're not.
You said on that evidence you could not.
No, I
find him
said on
guilty.
what I knew of it. Yes, I was surprised.
Well, what else?
Wait a sec. On what I knew of it, that I was surprised that he was found guilty, right?
Well,
but we have eminent legal minds who are sitting there hearing every word of evidence.
Yeah, and one of
And
them
they-
said he wasn't guilty.
No, but two of them said he was.
Well, one
but
of them-
anyway, this shouldn't.
I'll withdraw
Yeah,
the
but you gotta-
disgrace.
and you should
I will
disclose-
withdraw that, Mick. You're not a disgrace.
but this is not all
You're
about
a
George Pell.
wonderful man.
Andrew, let's broaden it a bit because we're not going to come to a resolution on Pell. Why are all the opinion writers of the Murdoch stable in Australia, and I don't think there's an exception, all ultra right wing?
I can't think of one that is.
You,
I'm not ultra right.
Panahai, Devine,
She's not ultra right.
Albrechtsen. not.
Philip Adams.
who's he work for? The Australian, does he?
Yeah.
Well, he's the token then.
No, it's not. Susie O'Brien.
Well, I'd regard her as right wing.
Susie O'Brien, right wing.
yeah.
You look at me in the eye and you're saying that she's right wing.
Well, we don't. Susie's not.
Maybe they're just
Tory
objective.
Shepherd, Malcolm
maybe,
Farr.
Maybe people are just objective about topics that come up
Why
in
do you
society.
I don't understand.
Why do you classify right and left wing?
because that's.
Oh, Mick,
Well,
hang
you
on.
How do you consider me ultra right wing? Like I'm
Go on.
against Nazis, I'm against fascism, I'm against
So you don't
the
think you're
mob.
right-wing?
No, of course, no, I'm conservative. That's
Ultra.
the difference.
Ultra?
No, not ultra conservative at all.
Could I ask you a question, Andrew?
No, look, I sometimes think, Mike, that you've got an idea of me that's based on your prejudices and your imagination.
My prejudice.
Yeah.
Not
Yes.
on the facts.
Why am I prejudiced? Well, what?
I don't know. Look, when we shared offices,
Adjoining offices, yeah.
offices, we got on all right, didn't we?
But we still do.
Do we?
Yeah, but I just.
So I reckon you're a nice bloke.
Well, this is not an issue about personalities.
Well, apparently it is.
What's on what basis?
Do you agree that we've always got on very well?
And we still do we not?
Are you the same guy that tweeted of me? He is a miserable man on every front. He is a miserable man on every front.
Well,
Did you tweet that of
well,
me?
obviously, if it came up under my name, I obviously did.
So why'd you do that?
Why did you do that?
Why'd you do
Why-
that?
Yeah,
I mean,
Jack, would you
you've
like
never
to
told
ask?
me that. You've always told me the exact opposite. Why did you
Well, there
tweet
must have been
something
an
so
issue.
nasty on
There must have
about
been
me?
an issue of the day that.
Go on.
Well, you're going to apologise? You're
Getting
going to
like
tweet
Rex
out a
Hunt.
thing and saying I'm not a
is
miserable
Rex
man in
Hunt.
every way?
I wouldn't think.
I thought that was really a
Yeah,
nasty
no,
thing to do.
I wouldn't think that you're a miserable man. But
But
there
you
was-
tweeted that.
Well, there may have been an issue.
You
then
tweeted that.
that prompted
you
me.
went along with the mob. You're weak. How could you do something like that?
Well,
I thought
that
it was
was-
a really nasty thing to do, and I thought it was
If you-
dishonest because you don't believe
If you
it.
threaten to
but you
walk out,
tweeted
Mick,
it.
Yeah, I hope you don't.
if you
I-
you did that with Rex.
Rex Hunt.
I just think you hunt with the
is there
mob
anyone- Would you like
sometimes,
to
Mike.
get a few people out there to join in and
No,
make it
I'm
10
quite-
on to 1?
No, just
Well, how
you-
about that? How about you go and tweet something? If you don't believe what you wrote about me, how about you tweet an apology?
When was that?
That was. No, I'll have to look it up. You don't even remember slagging me off like that.
No,
That's
I don't.
incredible.
No,
it's
I
only a couple of months ago.
A couple of months ago.
Yeah.
On what issue? Do you remember?
Oh, Flanners. Who's Flanners?
Is that Martin Flanagan?
Martin Flanagan. So you hunt with Martin Flanagan.
No, I don't hunt with anyone. I have my own
You
view.
said, yes, Flanners, agree. He is
but-
a miserable man
but
on every front.
that
You're
would've-
hunting with Martin Flanagan, of all people.
that would have been on an issue. I'm entitled to a view
Climate.
about
on
an issue.
every front. It's not one issue. You said on every front.
Did I must have been in a bad mood that day.
Anyhow,
Yeah,
we'll
well,
change
I'm
the
looking forward to
subject.
your
no,
apology,
don't
Mike.
gang up on our panel member, please, Andrew. I might have to defend him, surely. Don, please.
Well, it's your show, I know,
No,
but
it's
I'll
not
play
my
second.
show.
I'll play third.
This is the big argument and discussion we always have, the three of us, is about the climate. Could I ask you a question? I presume you are not a denier that the climate might be changing, but I presume you don't think it's for the real great reasons that the left put up. I don't want to put words in your mouth, or is that not right?
When people use the word climate denier, they're usually, I think, absolutely moronic. They don't use the term correctly. First of all, it's a deliberate insult, right? It's supposed to make you look like a Holocaust denier. That's why they've chosen the word. Secondly, the climate does change. It's always changed. Most of Australia used to be underwater. You know, that's why there's the limestone there. Do I think that climates don't change? That's just nonsense. So the climates do change. And I suspect that man's emissions may have something to do with that. Like I've said many, many times. How much? We don't know. Is it bad? We don't know. There's mixed evidence on that. Because have a look, the world in the last 20 years has got greener, according to NASA. More leaf cover. Our crops are bigger than ever. You have a look at world grain crops. We don't have less rainfall. We have more over Australia over the last 100 years. We're now 1% less likely. Sorry, 100 years ago we had a real risk of dying from climate-related disasters. That risk has since, in the last 100 years, been cut by 99%. And we've got fewer cyclones.
And we did mention last week, Mick, that they have anticipated, but by the year 2040, the hole in the ozone layer will have closed.
Well, all I'm saying, Andrew, what I'd say to you on this is, if the overwhelming body of scientists in the world have the same view, I mean, I would adopt, that's my view. If the people who are expert in that field have that view, well, I'm prepared to accept that, but you don't.
No, but one is I'm not quite sure about what that consensus actually is a consensus about, because Correct. I've seen, for instance, people say 97% of scientists believe that blah, 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 and then I look at the scientists, they include, like a friend of mine, Nir Shaviv, who's one of the Israel's top scientists in the area, an astrophysicist. And I've talked to him. I said, "You're in the 97%." No, he said, he's not. He's not. He doesn't believe that man's emissions are causing most of the warming we've seen, for instance. So what is it? And in the end, you've got to look at objectively for yourself. You can't be continually guided by what the experts say. The experts used to tell you that we were going to have global cooling. The experts used to tell you that there'd be mass starvation by the end of last century. The experts used to tell you we'd run out of oil and gas. We haven't. We've got more proven reserves than ever. You've got to make your own mind up on the evidence.
We're not equipped.
Well, I've had more time than you. I've looked at it. You haven't.
Well, but I'm aware of. I mean, I back the scientists if that's their field and they're
which scientists.
Well,
this is the whole thing.
Wait a second.
Which scientists?
Weren't there 11,000 scientists around the world make a proclamation recently?
Well, see, there you go. You really mustn't trust the media headlines. They said 11,000 scientists say, they've signed a petition. You look at that petition. For a start, right off the bat, more than 1,000 are students. They're not scientists. Go forward. They include psychologists, a zookeeper, a doctor of divinity, political scientists. Are they really scientists? They include business people. I mean, scientists? Are you really kidding me?
Do you don't? Okay, let me ask you.
But you believe that? That's what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, but it's in the papers. You work.
Yeah, well, it's in the papers. There's your mistake.
So
there's your mistake.
Was it in your paper?
Yes, and it also in my paper was a criticism of it. This is the thing. The Herald Sun and the other newspapers and the News Limited groups I write for, News Corp groups, do have a debate, and therefore you do get both sides. You didn't read mine, so you might not have said that.
I read you. Well,
you didn't read, obviously, that bit. But the point is, on the ABC, you do not get that debate. So what I've said, the fact is that most of them were not climate scientists at all. You wouldn't have heard that. You wouldn't know that. On the ABC, you would not know that. And that is why debate is so important, Mike. It is so much more important to have what we're having here, a discussion between two people who don't agree, than it is to have the buying of sheep on the ABC.
And this is a bit like when I say I think Trump is doing a good job. You say the overwhelming majority of the people in America think he's a dickhead and a dill. And I say, well, I don't think that's quite right. Because it's not. But
do you think that's right, Andrew?
I don't think so. He got elected, didn't he?
He did.
And he'll probably get elected again, won't he?
Well, see,
So the overwhelming. See, this is the thing, Mike. I think a lot of public debate is polluted by the fact that journalists generally tend to be of the left of the audience they write for. And so when you say I'm controversial in a journalist.
you're controversial.
No, you're controversial, but it just depends what context. If you went on 2GB or 3AW, you'd be controversial. It is in the context where you speak. I'm controversial amongst my peers, maybe, the journalistic peers. I'm not controversial among the people that vastly read my stuff.
Could I just interrupt for 1 minute? Just before we go on with this, and if it's working all right, that's fine. It won't matter for the podcast. We think this might not be recording. If it is, we will. Is this recording or not? We're just having a rest for 1 second. We're having. How would you be if this is not recording?